morning to you, everywhere you're watching us. This is Early Exchange on Souk News. It is September 1st and the beginning of the Ember month. We are pumped up to perform more than ever before. It's a period of accountability for a lot of people, a lot of organizations, and on a personal level, it should be a period of sober reflection to see what you weren't able to achieve in the last 8 months of the year. And you still have 4 more months to go, which is enough time for you to make all the adjustments that are necessary. My name is Ayo. Jimmy, welcome on board. Of course, Blessing Ichi is standing by in our new studio to give us the news updates. Good morning, Blessing.
Good morning, Ayo. Thank you for joining me on the morning news update. I am Blessing Ichi, and happy new month to you. We're bringing the news after this time. Stay tuned. Thanks for staying tuned. The federal government has ordered all international airlines to leave the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos from October 1, 2023 for a total overhaul of the airport. This was announced by the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, during a tour of the airport with the Managing Director of the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria, FAN, Mr. Kabir Yusuf Mohammed. Keyamo said the maintenance work is necessary to improve the safety and efficiency of the airport. He added that the government will provide alternative airports for the airlines to use during the maintenance period. The MMIA, which is the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, is the busiest airport in Nigeria and handles millions of passengers each year, and the maintenance work is expected to take several months to complete. Away from aviation, the Inspector General of Police, IGP, said that the Nigerian police force needs an additional 190,000 personnel to effectively man the country. The IGP said that the current police-citizen ratio of 1 to 650 is not enough to tackle crime and secure the country's critical infrastructure. The IGP noted that the low manpower of the police force is hindering the government's industrialization drive. The IGP made the remarks in a paper presentation to the Senior Executive Course 45 at the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, Kuru, Plateau, hosted by the Nigerian Police Force. The Lagos State government has directed all educational institutions below the tertiary level to resume on Monday, September 4th, 2023, to align with the year 2023-2024 harmonized academic school calendar, which has received approval from the Lagos State Ministry of Basic Education. The Director General of the Office of Education Quality Assurance, OEQA, Mrs. Abiola Seriki Ayeni, made this known yesterday during a recent interview held at her office in the Secretariat, Alausa. She also stressed the need for proprietors and school administrators to ensure strict compliance with the Lagos State safeguarding and child protection policy while adhering to safety protocols on school premises. Moving on, Ijebu East Local Government Chairman Wale Adedayo has been suspended for 3 months by 7 out of 11 councillors on allegations of maladministration and financial mismanagement. The councillors accused Adedayo of withdrawing 4 million naira from the local account for empowerment in 2022, which never took place, and of spending 2 million naira on Isese Day. Adedayo has denied the allegations and is expected to appear before the council legislature on September 14 to defend himself. The suspension is pending the conclusion of investigations into the allegations. The move came a few days after he accused Governor Dapo Abiodun of the diversion of local government funds, but later joined other local government chairmen the next day to apologize to the governor for the act. Dangote Sugar Refinery PLC has announced that it will merge with Nascon Allied Industries PLC and Dangote Rice Limited in a merger that will be completed through a scheme of consideration. In a press release signed by Company Secretary Mrs. Temitope Hassan, under the scheme, Nascon shareholders will receive 11 Dangote Sugar Refineries shares for every 12 Nascon shares they own. Dangote Rice shareholders will receive 14 DSR shares for every 1 DRL share they own. The measure is subject to approval from the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, and the Federal High Courts. In less than 48 hours after the recent coup in Gabon, Rwanda has retired 12 generals and others in the reshuffle of the military. Rwanda's President Paul Kagame has also met with the UAE ambassador and Cameroon's defense attaché to discuss defense cooperation. Similarly, Cameroon has made changes to its Ministry of Defense. Cameroon President 90-year-old Paul Biya reshuffled the delegate to the presidency in charge of defense, Air Force Staff, Navy, and the police. We're going to short break and then continue with more stories. Don't go anywhere. Many thanks for being there. Data from Statista has shown that the African beauty and personal care market is worth $57.12 billion in 2023. Nigeria has the largest market share of $7.8 billion, followed by Egypt, South Africa, Ethiopia, and Tanzania. The Nigerian market is expected to grow at an annual rate of 14.43% in the next 5 years. The most popular categories in Nigeria are lip cosmetics, facial cosmetics, nail care, hair care, fragrance, and shave-related products and services. Away from Nigeria, Cape Town, South Africa has secured the top spot as Africa's best city brand, with Cairo, Egypt, and Johannesburg in South Africa following suit, based on a global survey of nearly 15,000 participants across 20 countries in April 2023. Boasting a score of 62.9 out of 100, Cape Town's strong brand perception is attributed to its high recognition within the continent, underpinned by its natural beauty, cultural diversity, and promising economic prospects, making it an attractive choice for a well-rounded lifestyle. Meanwhile, London has globally emerged as the premier city brand, according to the Brand Finest City Index, with New York and Paris in pursuit, driven by London's extensive global familiarity and positive reputation. Moving now to the Middle East, Abu Dhabi International Airport AUH announced that its new terminal, Terminal A, will begin operations in early November 2023, covering 742,000 square meters of built-up area. Terminal A is one of the largest airport terminals in the world and will significantly increase AUH's passenger and cargo capacity. The terminal will accommodate up to 45 million passengers per year, process 11,000 travelers per hour, and operate 79 aircraft at any given time. Equipped with the latest technologies, Terminal A will offer passengers a seamless, digitized journey from pre-travel to boarding. And now we move to Russia, where it is facing fuel shortages in its southern regions. The shortages are caused by factors including maintenance at oil refineries, infrastructure, bottlenecks, and the weaker ruble. Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak said there were no fuel shortages, but he also said the government was working on measures to ensure a stable supply of it on the domestic market. Industry sources say the situation will improve no earlier than October, when many oil refineries will wrap up their maintenance, while seasonal demand is expected to decline. Over 100 schools in England have been instructed by the government to close their structures constructed with potentially unstable form of concrete. The concrete causing the concern is RAAC reinforced autoclaved aerated concrete, a budget-friendly alternative used in construction from the 1950s to 1990s due to its lightweight composition, its limited lifespan, and differing structural behavior, which has raised wear and tear issues in numerous panels already in use. To ensure safety, students will be moved to alternate learning areas until precautions like reinforcing sealants are implemented. A donor-specific schedule for concrete replacement has been provided by the Department for Education. Urgent appeals of a reason from school administrators for a prompt strategy to address this issue. Labour's Bridget Phillipson, the shadow education secretary, has criticized the government's choice. China's new national map has sparked objections from its neighbors, with the Philippines, Malaysia and India releasing strong statements accusing China of territorial claims. China's revised map includes a dashed line around disputed areas in the South China Sea, contested by the Philippines and subject to an international tribunal ruling in favor of Manila. India protested against the inclusion of its territory in China's map, and Malaysia rejected China's claims, emphasizing its position on sovereignty. Tensions persist between China and India due to border dispute, despite recent efforts to de-escalate, while China's territorial assertions continue to fuel geopolitical concerns. Moving now to the U.S., the Biden administration has authorized direct U.S. military aid of $80 million to Taiwan under the Foreign Military Financing Program, which supports foreign governments. This marks the first time such assistance has been granted directly to Taiwan and comes amidst increasing concerns about China, which has carried out major military exercises 3 times in over a year in response to Taiwanese leaders' interactions with the United States. While the U.S. aid needs approval from Congress, it is widely supported by lawmakers from both parties due to bipartisan backing for Taiwan. The move signals a shift in U.S. policy, as the U.S. has historically recognized Beijing and supported Taiwan through arms sales, not direct aid. And that's it on the Morning News Update. Thank you for watching. I am Blessing Ache. Let's get back now to the continuing part of Early Exchange, and that will be after this break. Stay tuned. All right, let's take a closer look now at some of the news stories as we make sense of it for you or provide perspective on them. It also someone's looking very African. He has a way of doing this every Friday. He just wants to make you know that don't be confused by the kind of crisp English that I speak. I am still an African, even though I wear suits most of the time. But today, you will know for sure that this is an African man, a proud one at that. It also, someone say, is the Director of Policy and Research, African Development Studies Center. Good morning to you, sir.
Blessing, good morning.
A very good morning to you.
Good morning. A blessed last quarter of the year.
Your cap speaks volumes.
Oh my God.
I feel like we should be on the runway. All right, let's begin from aviation, where the government, federal government, has ordered all international airlines to leave the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos from October 1, which is just a month away, for a total overhaul of the airport. Now, this was announced by the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo. Now, he ordered that the government will provide alternative airports for the airlines to use during the maintenance period. Now, this move is going to take quite some time to overhaul the airport, but they'll be moved over to an alternative airport. Where that is, I actually don't know. Maybe it's going to be Abuja Airport.
No.
But if it's going to be
Lagos Airport.
Okay. Or maybe the local wing?
Not local wing, it's international wing. Actually, at the international airport, you have 2 wings. There's one that's just been built by China, so most of the international airlines had not used it except a lot of African airlines. So a lot of people still prefer the older airports. So there are two wings actually. And I think what the minister was alluding to was the fact that they need to actually clean up that space. Don't forget, the last week we spoke about it when Kabir came and then, of course, tried to see how to clean up the environment. The whole place has actually been a mess, and there's a whole real need to clean it up. Like we always say, the international airport is the gateway to Nigeria, and it must be decent enough because what people will see about us is what they see in the airport as they encounter it. Now, he had made a promise that the government is going to buy buses that are going to move passengers from where the bigger aircraft can park so that they can drive to the new passengers to the new airport while they complete the renovation of the old wing of the airport.
Or they should have just specified that in the information, then moving from one wing to another.
No, he said it was very clear.
The Murtala Mohammed International Airport.
Maybe the way it was captured,
Yes, it was very clear.
Yes,
the minister spoke to the press, and he was very clear about what the government was about to do so that they can clean up the older wing and then move to the new wing that was built by Chinese, and then they can use it. Because a lot of the international airlines didn't want to use that wing. And the reason, of course, they have given was that the aircraft, they are bigger aircraft, they will not be able to park in those places. Of course, the distance between where they can park and where passenger will come to arrival or departure is far. So what the minister has said is that to be able to take care of those concerns, government will purchase long buses, like it's done everywhere, to convey passenger, whether arrival or departure, from the hall down to the tarmac where they will have to board.
I think this is very important for us to do at this point. There is a culture of excellence in several parts of the world, and when we talk about excellence, it's not about the big thing that we do, it's about this little thing that we do. Take care of, the look and feel of the airport is very important, and look at the extent of inconvenience that this kind of overhaul can have, and you prepare ways to ameliorate the situation while it is being done. It is good, and it will take several months, really, like we said. So
let me give you just, the other day we were talking, and Kabir said when it was resumed, that there was even a car park in that airport, that since the day of Abacha, the car park had never been used, and the place was stench. And they had to clear it so that, of course, you can have enough space for cars to park, where workers can park, people can have decency. The place, the look and feel of the place can actually be good. You can imagine that that place had been locked up for over 25 years, not used. And people just said there was security risk. What the risk was, not defined. So I think the whole idea and what the new MD is trying to do is to give that airport a beautiful look. The busiest in Nigeria, and of course, it's an airport that, of course, when people see it, and of course, they can also appreciate us as a true giant of Africa.
All right, let's move on to matters concerning security. As the IGP, Inspector General of Police, has said that the Nigerian police force needs an additional 190,000 personnel to effectively man the country, because there's currently a police-citizen ratio of 1 to 650. Now, I don't know if very recently the police will be calling for more recruits to be trained to fill in this gap, but coming up to say that they need an additional 190,000 personnel, I think, is the police knowing what they need and actually stating their need for governments to take it up.
Yes. Globally, the ratio is around 1 to 450. I mean, one policeman to about 450 citizens. Now we have 1 to 650, which overburdens the capacity and the tools of the police. We talk about response, rates of police to crime alerts or to SOS messages. This is one of the factors. We are actually under police as a people, and if they are saying they need, over 190,000, 190,000 personnel to join them, yes, they just have to. People are looking for job, really. make the police job, you know, exciting, interesting, create incentives for them, because we don't lack human capacity, so to speak. We have young, let's not forget, we have a very young population, which should be one of our strengths. And if young people can, you know, come into the police force, because it is attractive, not just for the pay, it's a service first to the nation, even before being a service to yourself. This will be, you know, something that will make us proud as a people and keep us safe. Let's not forget that it is a collective effort talking about security. So the 190,000, and this should, you know, be taken seriously.
Yeah, it's is important to talk about adding numbers. My only worry is the fact that the ones that are there, the extent to which that they are sufficiently motivated to do the work is another ball game completely. And I think in an era where, of course, technology has actually become very, very important, even in terms of security, I think we should actually be looking at how to deploy enough technology in terms of crime fighting most of the time. Because we can't have policemen enough. We're about 200 million people as is being projected. So no matter the number you have, of course, you will still be under-policed. But I think what is important for security is that we must also be integrating, not just recruiting. Yes, recruiting is good, at least give people some job. But efficiency is the other thing. You see, because what that does is that if you have, for example, in this island here, they are well really mapped out, and of course, cameras everywhere that can monitor what people are doing. One man can actually see and be monitoring the CCTV or whatever it is from one screen, and then of course if there are, can raise an alert, and then people can respond.
So
and
you
this
need
is
less
what people,
of manpower.
Yeah, this is what people are doing, because even if you have 190 more policemen, they will be in the station. They can't see what is happening on the outside until somebody comes to report to them. So these are the real issues that we have to contend with. And I think the police authority also must be looking at how to deploy more secure technology to actually fighting crime than using manpower to do so.
Okay, you know, we talked about the coup in Gabon and the one in Niger yesterday. So in reaction to the recent coup in Gabon, Rwanda has retired 12 generals and others in the reshuffle of the military. And they are not the only ones who have done that. Cameroon has also made changes to its Ministry of Defense. So this reshuffle and changes in Ministry of Defense, in a bid to prevent coup from happening in other countries, will it work?
Well, for Rwanda, if you've been following development in Rwanda, you will know that what is happening in Rwanda may not just likely be as a result of the Gabonese coup, because from time to time, the Rwanda government has always done this reshuffling. About 2 weeks ago, they also have some reshuffle, so they keep doing this reshuffle from time to time, and that's because the government of Rwanda is actually very conscious of how to deal with its environment so that they can maintain stability. Because one of the issues is that there are a whole lot of tension, especially from the outside, against Rwanda. There are a lot of opposition who are in the neighboring eastern country in Rwanda who are actually also wanting to take power, not even from the military. And so when you have such kind of a security threat, you know, as a leader, you have to be strategic enough to be able to see how to move people around so that you don't fall a prey. Because if you remember, Paul Kagame actually came from Uganda to take over government in Rwanda. So you will look at it that these people understand where they are coming from and they are working that. But for Poppy, I can't say that, but I don't think changing a military officer, like we said yesterday, is enough for anybody to protect himself. And I think what we should do is to do things right. What are the reasons for this coup? We know people are hungry. The economy in Africa is in bad shape. There are no good facility on ground. And so when there's so much agitation, even the people from the margins can rise against the government. And I think this is what the African leaders must understand, and this is what they must begin to put into practice to see how to provide good life for citizens. And even when we know we don't have so much resources to do so, let the people be able to see that, yes, you are making an attempt, that while you are asking them to tighten belt, that you on your own side is also tightening belt. So we must cut down on the cost of governance. We must be transparent to the people. We must be accountable to the people that elect us. And this is the only way to build trust in the system, that of course all this kind of insurgency, all this kind of mutinies and coup will not be happening around us.
So when I read this story yesterday, the first question I asked was, is this reshuffle fear-driven or intelligence-driven? Or strategy-driven? But you've just given us a background to that now, that with Rwanda, it is more of an intentional reshuffle as against response to the uproar in Gabon, or the coup in Gabon. Like you said, the underlying factors are what we should look at. In Africa, they say if you see an ailing tree and you choose to cut the leaves off, you have not done the job. Look at the root cause, because the issue might be with the root. So if you take care of the issue from the root, then you won't have ailing leaves or ailing tree, essentially. So for African leaders, it also has spoken, we just have to take heed and ensure that we do the normal, so that we can have the people who believe in our government. Because if the people believe in you, chances are they will not cause any destabilization of the system. They want the status quo to continue. People only respond when the status quo does not favor the generality of the masses, and it just favors a select few, which is what we have in most parts of Africa today.
Yeah, and I think that African leaders should not be reactive. They should be proactive, because response like this, so something has happened, we don't feel safe in our seats, something like that, and in trying to react to it, there's a reshuffle, and maybe plans will now be on to appease the people with one or two developments to calm them down. But rather than being reactive, proactive steps, ensuring that the dividends of good governance, the people get them, and then we'll not be in a situation like this. Or even
you actually get to Rwanda and you see that people are actually carrying placards. Yes, they want their president to stay. Okay.
That's
and this has always been the issue. They don't want him to go because he's in touch with the people. Every Saturday, first Saturday of the month, Paul Kagame take sanitation with the entire citizens. And after cleaning, they sit down in the city square to have conversation and interaction direct with the president. On the last Sunday of every month, he takes an exercise, a jog, in the city center with the people. It doesn't matter, you don't need to be cabinet member. Everybody is involved. And when they finish jogging, they come to the city square, they ask him questions, he responds. Now, such a president who is free with his people, it will be very difficult for people to say, oh, we want this guy to go, because they know where they are coming from, and the man is doing everything humanly possible to make sure that the life is good for the average Rwandans. This is what we see every day, and that's why you see today, that is the bride of almost all tourists as we speak now. All African countries, over 30 foreign airlines land in Rwanda airport on a daily basis.
That's something to copy from. Okay, now let's talk about the beauty sector. Yes, the men are laughing like they have no business with this. But data from Statista has shown that the African beauty and personal care market is worth $57.12 billion in 2023. Out of that, Nigeria has the largest share of $7.8 billion, followed by Egypt, South Africa, Ethiopia, and Tanzania. Now, the Nigerian market is expected to grow at an annual rate of 14.43% in the next 5 years, meaning that the share Nigeria currently has of $7.8 billion will increase by 14.43% over the next 5 years. So the most popular categories of this beauty market are lip cosmetics. Do the men have business with this? I'm going to ask Ayo. Okay. Facial cosmetics, nail care, hair care, fragrance, and shave-related products. Okay, they have business with that.
Okay. To answer you directly, do men have a business to do with it? Yes, we do, really. Okay. Some of us directly, some of us by extension. Okay. I am not so big on, the beauty side of the divide. I'm not. I do powder anyway, but then I have a wife who and I have a daughter as well, and they are big into beauty. But apart from that, this story for me underscores one area that most people may not be looking at. When you hear a headline like we have a business that is worth 7.2 billion dollar in 2023. Now, beyond just wondering about the figures, decide how can you plug into this market. This is meant to be an indication of where to channel your energy. See, people say if you can solve a particular problem for people, you make money. Beauty is big because everybody wants to look good. I am yet to meet someone who does not want to look good. Every day in the morning, when you look at the mirror, most of the people don't like what they see, and they want to enhance it, really. A touch of powder here, lip gloss here and there. And even before coming on set on a TV show, we have our makeup touches. So we are part of the market, essentially. So young people who are driven by entrepreneurship spirit, they should look at this. If we say this is the size of the market, where do you plug yourself into it? So you're not just a consumer of the products. Maybe you could be part of those who are making small amounts of money from it. That for me
talking about being a consumer of the product, you know that most of these cosmetic products are imported. We do not have enough of Nigerians into the production of the cosmetic and makeup products. So that's where I think a lot of Nigerians should be looking at. Apart from a few who've been able to produce and have very, very good quality products in the market, the rest of them are majorly imported. Okay.
What a market. Just look at Blessing and you will see the market.
The market
that our contribution to the complete total package is up to 1%. So it's a large market. Beauty is big business, like they say. And of course, there's so much that Africans are doing. And not just African alone. Of course, if it's the hair market alone, that's massive. And I think it's something that we need really to plug into and then continue to leverage and grow it. 14% growth rate is very encouraging, and which means there's so much prospect in that area. Young people should wake up, see where that opportunities are, take them, and then become very prosperous, as we say here.
Okay, as we wrap up the news analysis, let's look at towns that have secured spot as best cities based on different criteria. Cape Town in South Africa has secured the top spot as Africa's best city brand, with Cairo, Egypt, and Johannesburg in South Africa following suit. So automatically, South Africa has two cities that made it to that list. Now, this was based on a global survey of nearly 15,000 participants across 20 countries in April of this year. Now, boasting a score of 62.9 out of 100, Cape Town's strong brand perception is attributed to its high recognition within the continent, underpinned by its natural beauty, cultural diversity, and promising economic prospects. They were not the only ones, or Cape Town is not the only city that has a strong brand perception. London has globally emerged as the premier city brand, according to the Brand Finance City Index. Now, this was based on London's extensive global familiarity and positive reputation. Now, my question is, when will other countries of Africa get on this list? Now, for Cape Town, now they got this recognition based on the natural beauty of the place, cultural diversity, and promising economic prospects. These three areas made it look quite attractive and made it win the best city in Africa.
Okay, there's a particular phrase there that I want us to underline. They said it is based on strong brand perception.
Yes.
Now, branding is so much more about perception as it is of the real thing for it. There is no I am not sure there is any country in Africa that doesn't have its own natural beauty, no matter how small, that doesn't have its own diversity, and that doesn't have the potential for economic opportunities. But then, what are we doing to push the right brand across? Earlier on in Daosa, when we were talking about the the overhaul of the international airport in Lagos here, we spoke about the look and feel. He said that it's a gateway to Nigeria, and people must feel right when they land here. you can imagine a foreigner coming to us, maybe having a stopover, for instance, between one flight and the next, and he gets to see that particular car park that has not been used for 25 years, and he's like, what is this? National airport. Now, if we take care of all these little details about our country, Nigeria has beauty, a lot of natural places that we can go to. What has happened to our tourist centers in Nigeria? What have we done to them? But then, the elements that will form part of the perception that can put us on this particular list are security. How secure do you feel when you enter Nigeria here? When you go to some hoods in Lagos or what have you, how do you feel? Do you feel safe? Then what about the attitude of the people towards you? All these little details are what form part of the perception. It is perception and nothing more than that. We have to be intentional. What is branding? It is just a way of forcing an impression on people that this is who I am, and that's why when during the era of Okonjo-Iweala, of Blessed Memory, when there was this campaign of great nation, good people.
Great nation,
people just said, "Oh,
Professor
that was
Dora Akrili.
Dora Akrili. Sorry, I beg your pardon, Akrili." The messaging looks very simple, but if we had followed this up with action, really, we should be talking about something positive now in Nigeria, because it's what we say we are, and the things we do to push that agenda, and people who used to put us here on this list or on better lists.
I think it's more of a consistency issue, because at one point or time we seem to wake up to that and wanting to make our cities look better and wanting to improve on several sectors, but consistently we've not been seeing that.
It's not just a perception alone. There's also some measure of factuality in it, because if you travel and you go to major cities in the world, you see how cities should look like. And if you look at our environment, take for example, planning is poor. And this is why when people are talking about Abuja cleanup, and there's a whole lot of politicization around it, Wike want to destroy houses. The city was designed originally to have a look, it's a kind of a look that was befitting. But now we have bastardized it. Now when you come to the city of Lagos, for example, you see slums everywhere in the heart of the city. And you can't find this anywhere in any modern city. So it's much more than perception. Even as Nigerians, as we travel and you land in other people's airport, the first thing you say is a sigh of relief. When you are coming back, you will be panting. These are issues, and these are the things that are creating the impressions. So we need to do things well. And our people need to be law-abiding. You see, there's a way we try to moralize and play on the emotions of the people. Oh, these people are just looking for what to eat. The fact that you are looking for what to eat does not make you to become a lawbreaker. There are street trading, for example, in Paris. But it's well organized. Come and look at the way we trade in the street in Lagos, for example. It's an eyesore. This is what people are looking at. And when you look at the environment, you will be able to say how clean it is. Because the dirtiness of our operations here take away the natural beauty.
You're right.
So this is the real issue. And our people must also understand that we are also decent people. Let's do things decently. And this is what, for me, is what is here. We need a government with a sufficient will to enforce that people live decently and abide by extant laws and regulations that govern city planning.
And we need it to be a continuous thing, not a one-off thing or something that ends with the tenure of one government. But successively, we should continue to have that happen. All right, this is it on the news analysis segment. We're going to break, and then our focus for today will be on the business of recreation. Stay tuned.
All right, welcome back to Early Exchange on Souk News. There is this old saying that all works without play makes Jack a dull boy. I bet that does not, get limited to Jack alone. It could make Bintu a dull girl, it could make Ngozi a dull girl, and make Aruna a dull boy. Because if you work all day, all month, all year, and you don't have a means of recreation, then you probably, get exhausted at some point. So today we're looking at recreation, but not from the angle of work-life balance, but we're looking at it from the angle of the business of recreation. Essentially, how do we do the business of recreation? In what way do people who are practicing it manage the dynamics of recreation? These and many more are what we'll be looking at on today's show as we observe or as we take a look at the business of recreation. Blessing.
Yes, it's very important, and it falls on a day that works well with recreation, because this is Friday, and a lot of persons already are in the weekend mood. And so after work or after business today, many persons will head on to one recreational center or the other. But the thing is, those who are in the business of providing recreational facilities, how do they adhere to regulations? What kind of regulations oversee the operations of recreational centers that we have to ensure safety, not just of the people, but also of the facilities? So this is what we'll be looking at when we talk about regulation and safety in recreational business, because you do know that people will make use of different facilities. Take, for instance, a swimming pool within a facility. How should people use it? What are the rules guiding the use of a swimming pool, or even the setup of a pool? And what measures should be put in place to ensure the safety of the users of such a facility? Get the idea, right? I'm sure. So we're bringing in a guest who will be joining us via Zoom. But before that, I want to ask Ayo, what is his favorite recreational exercise or recreational activity?
Well, I just try as much as possible to unwind reading novels. I didn't say reading books, don't get me wrong. And once in a while, I go to the movies. That's how I, enjoy recreation. Okay, we have Mr. Waliu Adegoke, who is an HSC consultant with Coda Safety Consult, joining us via Zoom to, look at health and safety regulation, not just around the business of recreation, but generally where you have more than one, person gathered for celebration or for recreation. Good morning, Mr. Waliu.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, thank you for joining us on this show today. Now, we are looking at the business of recreation, the regulation of it, talking about the safety protocols and what have you in that field. I would not, corner you, because I know that your service offering is much more broader than that. But then let's look at recreation for starters. Now, what are the key regulations that guide, the way recreational centers are organized that impact on safety? If you can give us just a background and maybe a general information about that.
Now, to start with, thank you for having me again. It's my pleasure being there again. When it comes to health and safety generally, there are stages to health and safety, which some of us are aware about. Some of us are aware of. For example, when we talk about the Factories Act, when we talk about the Employees Compensation Act, and every other act that has to do with health and safety. Talking about recreation is an industry on its own. So based on industrial activities, based on industrial standards, there are so many regulations that guides each kind of recreational activity. Because we are talking about recreation, there are various examples of recreation. But let's look at that of, let's say, hotel facility where we have swimming pools. There's what we call a hotel proprietors law, which talks about the various regulations, guidelines that should be followed by owners of hotels when it comes to creating a safe environment for those who are gathered in their facility. And same applies to every other form of recreation, maybe a public amusement park, a club, or wherever you go to have a form of relaxation. There are general laws that talks about how you should ensure the safety of everyone in that facility. So when it comes to regulations, regulation is not only limited to a particular aspect. You look at it from the national view, that is the national laws that talks about health and safety. Like I mentioned the other time, the Factories Act of Nigeria. Then at industrial level, based on each industry that operates a kind of regional activity, you also look at the laws that guide them, then gradually to organizational level. So that is how laws are being established and implemented, cascaded downward. Thank
Okay,
you.
let's look at training. For people to implement regulations effectively, they must have been trained on certain guidelines or operations within the industry that they're in. So the training of people who work in recreational facilities, do we have a kind of a standard training, or it depends on the person who owns the recreational facility that now determines the kind of training he wants to have for his staff?
Now, when it comes to training, training is tailored towards the risk perception or the risk level in the organization. You know, for example, let's say gun is used for killing, right? But you can't use a gun to kill mosquito. It's not possible. A mosquito has whatever will be used to kill a mosquito. And same thing applies when it comes to training and when it comes to control measures. Training is just one of those control measures that we put in place to create competency, to improve the competency level so that those that are involved, the employers, the staffs, they will be able to know how to address those level of risk. So then, depending on the risk that's associated to a particular workplace, that will determine the level of training, the kind of training, there's what we call the training matrix, which involve the kind of training that is applicable to a particular profession and to a particular activity and to a particular responsibility. So that being said, when it comes to recreational activities, you have people gathering. There are issues that has to do with first aid because people can get injured as a result of their activities. How do you address the issue of first aid? If we're talking about first aid, we talk about prevention. You know, it's one thing to prevent. It is one thing to prevent an accident from happening, and it's another thing to prevent the escalation of an accident. How do you prevent an accident? That is what part of the training you give your workers. How do they identify hazards? How do they identify risk? And how do they put control measures in place? Do they have a management system in the organization that helps to prevent various kind of accidents that could happen within the recreational facility? Are there issues of protocols to be established? And those that are in that particular facility, they must abide to that protocol. For example, if you can't swim, please do not enter the swimming pool. For example, if you have a kid, ensure that you monitor your kid at all times. These are protocols that must be established and followed. And this can be done when even their own staff are being trained on how to identify potential accident or incident that could happen. So now, apart from that training, when it comes to, okay, maybe something that happens now, maybe there's an injury. Do you have trained first aiders? If there's an issue of heart failure or any other issue that has to do with need for CPR, do you have trained first aiders? If it has to do with issue of fire, maybe there's a fire outbreak in your recreational facility, do you have trained first aiders? How do you address these challenges? So based on the possible risk, that's why we talk about site inspection. We talk about facility inspection. The regional facility, we go there to inspect it to know the kind of risk, the kind of hazard that is embedded there so that we will know the kind of control measures. Then from that risk and control measures, we're able to develop training content that suits the need of that particular company and that particular recreational activity that is taking place in that particular place.
All right, let's look at the role of industry associations because I believe that players in a particular sector understand the amount of risk there and what has to be done to mitigate against risk. How much of oversight do industry associations, have over the practice of safety and regulation within any sector? For instance, do we have HSC associations that overlook a lot of these, health and safety concerns across recreational parks everywhere in the country?
Now, when it comes to industrial standard, there's what we call socio-technical system involving risk management, which talks about the level of the level of hierarchy down to the employee, that is the worker, the level of responsibility that is attached to it and what they should do. For example, at the minimum level, we have the employee who's supposed to be able to, who is the one that is directly exposed to the hazard, who should be trained on how to identify hazard. Then directly to the supervisors who supervises, monitors, and give complaint on safety issues, and also have his own responsibilities when it comes to health and safety, and cascade down and takes that upward to the manager level. Then at manager level, maybe the HS manager or the management level, they look at the various reports that you have in the organization. Then each organization have an industry, which is where you are coming from now. When now comes to industrial level, there are various industries. There are various industries that we have. Let's say, for example, in the construction industry, there are some kind of regulations that at industrial standard that is applicable to that particular industry. For example, the Nigerian Institute of Safety Engineers, they have what we call the codes of conduct, the code of practice for construction safety. So when it comes to construction safety in the construction industry, they have to abide to that regulation, and it's for best practice, not actually enforced, because there are some regulations that are best practice, and there are some regulations that you need that becomes the law that you must do compulsorily. So from that industrial level, when you look at the other aspects, when it comes to the oil and gas, for example, they have the DPR, Department of Petroleum Resources, and they have their own regulations too. That everyone that works in the oil and gas, every organization needs to abide with, needs to comply or conform to. So what I'm trying to let us know is that in various organizations, they have an industry, and there is a level of implementation. Some industry, they have regulations that have become a law that every organization must conform to or comply to, that wants to work under that industry. And there are some that are for best practice that can only help them to be able to address safety issues. So when it comes to recreational activities, I've not seen anyone. The one that I came across is the Hotel Proprietors Law, which talks about how they must put safety in place to ensure the safety of anyone within their facility. But when it comes to their industry, I have not seen any particular regulation that is at the industrial level that addresses safety issues. They might have others that talks about their business of recreation, but when it comes to peculiarity with safety, when it comes to recreation activities, I'm yet to see any. Thank you.
All right, let's look at developing accidents and emergency plan. I'll give you an example. Let's say a swimming pool within a recreational facility. What should be the emergency plan or accidents plan in that area?
Now, and that reminds me before I go to emergency plan, whether an industry has their safety regulation or not, there is a national regulation that addresses safety issues that they must conform to or they must comply with. For example, we are talking about the Factories Act. The Factories Act has various aspects, and the Factories Act is being implemented it's being enforced. Let me use the word enforced by the Ministry of Labor and Employment, the Inspectorate Division, and there is a responsibility for all accidents to be reported. There's a responsibility for accidents. If there's an accident in any organization, there is a responsibility that they must report it within 3 days. And if there's a failure on their part, and this is where we have loopholes, which we might still talk about later. These are where we have loopholes when it comes to some part of the act that makes it very easy for so many organizations not to comply. So there's a channel of reporting. It's a responsibility for organizations to report accidents that happens within a specified period of time, after which, if they do not report, there's a fine attached to it. So that is that about the question. But going further, we should understand that the Factories Act addresses whether it's a recreational activity, whether it's a construction industry, whether it's the oil and gas industry. They have various sections that addresses safety issues, provision of regulations for health and safety and welfare, ensuring safety in their facility, safety of workers working with their equipment, working with their facilities, and to notify the ministry and investigate accident and industrial diseases. So these are also applied to recreational activity. That Factories Act supersedes every other act that comes from industrial level. But if they have best practice, is good. But at minimum, they must comply with the Factories Act, which also include notification and investigation of accident and industrial diseases.
Okay. Now,
Thank you.
most of the responses to accidents are probably after the accidents happen. But then, I cite the instance of a young man who went to swim alongside his family members. Of course, he couldn't swim well, and he was given some, swimming aids to use. But at some point, somehow, the aid he was given, was flown away by the current, by the water current, and he was literally sinking. It took him like 5 minutes of, or maybe shorter, struggling underwater before he could wriggle his way up. Meanwhile, there were guards around that place, and somehow they missed out the fact that somebody was under the water for longer than necessary. When he came out, now the question was that, where were you when I was sinking? They were like, we didn't know you were sinking. That calls to question the capability of those who were meant to, prevent that in the first place. Then he was now asking the question later that, where do I complain to? Because he could have been dead, but for some kind of intervention by nature or by providence there. So if we face that kind of threat, that kind of poor oversight, where should people complain? Do we have a central complaint body that is being regulated by HSC practitioners, or is just a matter of individual complaint to the company itself?
Yes, when it comes to reporting, we still have so many loopholes. But the standard practice is, where there are issues like this, we complain, we will raise the complaint when it comes to health and safety issues to the Department of Labor and Employment. That is the standard practice. I think some time ago, I got informed that there was a particular app or something that there was a particular channel, maybe through their social media handles, where people can report directly to them where there are safety issues. But beyond that, if we feel threatened by issue of safety, and we do not have a direct channel of communication to Ministry of Labor and Employment, part of what people do is to escalate it directly through the social media handles, then tag them. Then when they tag them, they tag the police and all those things, and it works so many times. But when it comes to a defined channel of communication for individuals, not organizations now, assuming it happened in the workplace where they have a labor union, it's the responsibility of the labor union to send such report to the Ministry of Labor and Employment. But when it now comes to education activities, when it's an individual who is being threatened, who is undergoing almost getting into fatality because of lack of safety practice of that organization or that educational center, then if the person does not have a direct linkage on how to report directly to them, which like I said, I don't have a clear, there is no clear channel for now on how to report as individuals. But for organizations, there's a way to report. Remember that I said from the beginning that it's the responsibility of the organization itself to report such, because that is an accident. It's the responsibility of the organization to report. And if our laws are being strengthened and properly implemented, that should have gone through the organization themselves. But because of the way things are, there are other means that individuals, that are encouraging individuals to use when they are being threatened by issue of safety in organizations or in public spaces. They can go on social media and escalate this and tag the necessary bodies that could address the issue.
Are there emerging technologies that could revolutionize the practice of safety in recreational facilities?
Practice of safety in recreational activities, I can't say specifically, but I know that there are no regulations when it comes to, let me say regulations. When it comes to technology is a thing that is still upcoming in the nation. We are moving gradually towards that trend. And when it comes to recreational activities, the control measures that are being put in place in terms of engineering controls to reduce to bridge a gap between the hazard and the individuals that can be involved. For example, you are talking about technology. For example, using of this floating device is an example of technology when it comes to swimming. Creating a kind of a barrier to prevent direct involvement in an accident is a form of engineering control also. So when it comes to technology is already in existence based on what is obtainable. Like I said earlier, recreational activities is very wide. Unless you are talking about a specific aspect of recreational activity, unless you're talking about a specific area when it comes to recreational activity. You can't give a general explanation of technology. It is when there's a specific area of recreational activities that you know, okay, for these are the various controls that are in place when it comes to engineering. But in the system, generally, we have technology already imbibed, already integrated into our various activities that helps to aid safety concerns when it comes to recreational centers generally.
Okay, let's look at risk assessment as a necessity. It is believed by some people that this is actually done at the point of setting up the business because there are papers to fill. Okay, they'll come and inspect this. Have you done your risk assessment? But then some also believe that it should be a routine exercise because what constitutes risks today may not be the same tomorrow. How often should anybody that is handling the business of recreation, go on risk assessment? Is it a one-off thing or a routine exercise?
Now, before the establishment of it, before the startup of that recreational company, the organization that started the recreation, before they start operation, there will have been a risk assessment to be able to identify the risk. At the stage of building, at the stage of construction, at the early stage of the project, there should be a risk assessment that would have been done to be able to identify what controls must be together with the building itself. So when those controls are being implemented, when those controls are being put in place at the design stage, then for when it now comes to they want to start using the facility for recreational activity, there should be another risk assessment that should be done to ascertain the level of safety so that when they are so that at the end of the day they'll be able to address most of the safety concerns, and what you'll be having might be residual risks that should be managed from supervision and continuous improvement. But apart from this, there's also need for review of recreational centers when there is an accident or when there's an incident or there's a trend. Okay, when I talk about near misses, for example, near misses are accident that did not happen, accident that was supposed to happen, but due to one reason or the other, it nearly happened. So when there are near misses, there is a need to review your risk assessment. When there's an accident, there's a need to review your risk assessment. When there's a new introduction of a new process or a new department, maybe, for example, maybe they are only into adult section, maybe a movie center, for example, maybe they only invite, or they only what will I use? They only accept only adults in their facility. But as time goes on, they expanded their business to include kids. So they need to do a review of their risk assessment. Let's say a recreation center where they only have male and they want to introduce female, or they only have female, they want to introduce male. When there's a new changes in their business plan and in their business proposition that involve new things coming up, they need to do a risk assessment. And let's say nothing happens, it's still the same process, the same thing, and nothing has changed. At least on a yearly basis, they need to have, or even 6 months, because of the complexity of what they do. They deal more with people that are coming from outside. They deal more with the public. So dealing with the public means that you are dealing with different people at the same time. The person you are dealing with today is not the same person you are dealing with tomorrow. So that puts you at a higher level of risk. So because of this, on a, let's say, 6-month basis, at least you need to carry out a review of a risk assessment to be sure that all safety protocols, all safety establishments are still in place, and there will not be any possible form of accident when they continue to exist. That is the business of recreation.
Are there challenges with complying with safety and regulation rules in any business, not just recreational facilities?
Now, there are a lot of challenges when it comes to implementation. Even if you are implementing the act, and when it comes to the act, I'm talking about the Factories Act, for example. For example, when you look at provision for medical insurance for their workers, for example, the Factories Act is not compelling employers to provide medical insurance. Be that it may, though we have it in the Nigerian Constitution, which is the overall constitution law that guides that supersedes every other act, which under section 17.3 talks about employee providing adequate medical and health facilities to all employees. So that is a very good one. But there are some loopholes when it comes to the Factories Act because it doesn't enforce them. Another issue that we have when it comes to reporting of accident, like I said in the other time, if you look at the Factories Act section 51, 52, 53, that is the part 6 that I was talking about. It stipulates that the employers should notify institutional agency and for accidents within a period of 3 days to report accident within 3 days. But if they do not report, now listen to what the fine says. They said they will be fined 1,000 naira. Is this adequate? Because there is no review. There has been review from the start from the 1960s, 1967, from the review till today, where we have it in
Okay. We seem to have a network glitch there. Let's go on a very short break now, and when we come back, we'll return to the conversation with Mr. Waliu Adegoke as we take a look at regulatory practices around recreational centers. Please stay tuned.
Thanks for staying tuned. We've been talking with Waliu Adegoke, who is an HSC consultant on regulations and then safety rules on the business of recreation. Now, before we continue the conversation with him, we're looking at safety rules, risk assessment, compliance with the rules. I do know that carrying out periodic assessment for some recreational facilities is not something that regularly happens. But what could be the challenges with recreational owners of recreational facilities ensuring that they comply with every safety rule and regulation that governs or that oversees the running of their business? So Waliu Adegoke was talking to us about that before we went on a break. Let's continue from that. Hello, Waliu.
Thank you. Like I was saying, there are challenges when it comes to the act itself. The act needs to be reviewed. I mean, why should you have a act that says that you should report an accident? But if you fail to report within 3 days, then you are going to pay a fine of 1,000 naira. Please, it's easier for an organization to say that, okay, it's better I don't report them, because when they report it, they might be fined, or they might be in court, and it might be a reputation issue, and the life of someone is at stake. The life of someone is at stake. So if they do not report this accident, how do they look? How are they able to look into the system and know what is wrong? But because of the kind of leverage, how can you say that what happens to 50 million naira? What happens to 100 million? What happens to 500 million? What happens to 1 billion naira for an accident, and they fail to report the accident? That particular provision is not enough to address the particular challenge. I understand that at the time that they wrote it, maybe the 1,000 naira was very valuable then, but now that 1,000 naira is not obtainable to be used as a fine for those that don't report accident within 3 days. So there are regulations that talks about accident reporting, but the regulation itself gives room for them to decide on not to report the accident. And so many times there are other challenges that has to do with implementation. That has to do with when it comes to after an accident happens, they go for inspections, and at the end of the day, there is a kind of well, I can call it lack of penalty action to defaulters. Those companies that default, there is no strong penalty being given to them. Sometimes there's always compromise from the side of Ministry of Labor and Employment. Sometimes there's issue of taking something and not going there for the purpose of ensuring the safety of the workers there. So we have these challenges. Another challenge we have is when it comes to employment generally is because there are no job opportunities. So you will see that because of that, employers have this pride that if you go because of safety issues, other people are ready to work, and even workers are not ready to lose their job. So all these are challenges. We also have challenges with lack of understanding, lack of awareness on the side of the employee. The workers don't know their rights and privileges when it comes to safety in the workplace. And there's issue of poor supervision from the side of the Ministry of Labor and Employment. And this has continued to create room for a lot of lackadaisical activities from the side of the employers.
Okay, we are already in the Ember month, and in a couple of months now, it will be time for families to, go out, hang out with one another and celebrate, especially with our children. Now, when you see adults going to many of these recreation centers, it is essentially because of their children, and the question is, how do we keep children safe around recreation centers? Because once in a while we have accidents that happen, and nobody wants to watch his or child trapped in any tool that is meant for recreation. How do we keep children safe around recreation centers? Are there guides, regulations, rules, or laws that ensure that?
Yeah. Now there is no need to be a specific law or guide. As far as the Factories Act is concerned, your facility needs to be safe, and you need to protect anyone that is in your facility. It is a responsibility. Anyone that comes to your facility needs to be safe. You need to protect them and provide adequate safety for them. And that applies to recreational activities. We can go extra mile to talk about the issue of, what will I put it? Certification, or the issue of a license. There should be a channel for licensing any recreational activities, especially in the Ember month. In Lagos, for example, we have the Lagos Safety Commission that are doing a very good job. And these are the areas we need to look out for. But when it's being done, sometimes, or even most times, government agencies, they do these things from the angle of the revenue generation. Everything should not be revenue generation. Everything should not be revenue generation. Something should come from the area of protecting your citizens. They can create a channel where they will give license to recreational centers that has been licensed based on every other criteria, most especially issue of safety, meaning that they will have taken qualified personnel, safety professionals, to go to all these facilities, recreational centers, to inspect them, to give safety advice. Then when all the T's have been crossed and all the I's have been dotted, this place is safe to a reasonable aspect. This facility is safe to a reasonable level, then they issue them license. Then if this has been done, then the parent can now say, okay, for anywhere they want to take their child to, want to look at recreational centers that have been licensed by the government based on safety, that this regional center is safe to go to. And from there, if they see a regional center that is safe, that does not mean that they should also be loose. Because for the regional center to have been licensed, to have been safe, it definitely means that they have gone through all the required safety measures. It means that they've looked at the area. There will be sections when it comes to criteria. There will be requirements that I can't start going into now. There will be requirements for competency of their inspection. There will be requirements for their environment. There will be requirement for how they inspect their equipment. There will be requirements for the safety design of their equipment. There will be a whole lot of requirements. There will be requirements for emergency. Do they have emergency procedures in place? All this will have been stated in a particular, maybe at their industry. It will have been stated. These are what safety professionals can help them to design at the industrial level or even at government level, to design the requirement that makes a regional facility to be safe. Then they will not be compromised, not because you know somebody that owns a facility, then you just give them license. All this because we are looking at the end user, the safety of the end user. If this has been done, definitely parents should be safe, should have that feeling of safety. But even when they get there and they see that, okay, these people have been licensed, the next thing is not for them to be lackadaisical and just relax. They also need to ensure that they also abide to the safety rules. If you are not medically fit, indicating that you have medical issues, so that they would know that, okay, there might be possibility of a medical emergency. If you have a child, ensure that you also monitor your child. You don't allow your children to start going. If it's a beach, for example, you don't allow your child to start going into the swimming pool because you are so carried away with your own enjoyment. So these are what we look out for when it comes to emergency. And we will see that most times it is not present. There was a time that I was telling a friend of mine who is into a form of, what do you call them? These people that gather people for relaxation, maybe at the end of the month. There's a time they call themselves, they go to tour and the like. And I told him, guy, for you to also show that you care about your people who come around, do you have a kind of a small medical a first aid training, so in case so that you are bringing around to enjoy with you or for this special activity, in case there is a medical issue, are you able to attend to them? So all these are happening because there is no lack of qualified training, and the awareness is there, but they choose to turn the deaf ears, their deaf ears. And at the end of the day, when something happens, they'll start shouting safety, safety, safety. But in the area of them preventing accident by incorporating safety at the first place, they fail to go into that aspect. So what the parents can do is to ensure that the place they are going to has a record of safety, has a record of possible emergency, has a record of swift response to emergency, and also they themselves that are there need to ensure that they protect themselves, they are alert, and their kids are properly supervised at all times while they are there for their enjoyment.
All right, this inscription, cars are parked at owner's risk. A disclaimer that sometimes some businesses issue to prevent liability. Now, you must have seen this inscription in so many car parks, including car parks within recreational facilities and other businesses. Shouldn't the provision of security be part of safety?
Safety also includes security, and it should be part of what their responsibility should be. When it comes to cars are parked as owner's risk, there are so many things that surrounds it. There are so many things. I think recently, I think it was earlier this year where there were some kind of law, I think in Lagos State or so. I don't know if it's Lagos State or in the whole country, where the companies that have their customers parking outside should have a kind of license before those people, individuals would park there. And there should be a kind of payment in which, if they don't do that, the government can decide to take the car away or whatever. Now, these are part of the reasons why they say cars are parked at owner's risk. But I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not in the legal department or a legal unit. But we believe in safety, that even with that, you still need to create a level of safety for those that come to your facility, and their cars should also be protected, not only from theft, but from every possible form of accident that could happen as a result of their car being present within your facility. For example, your facility in your facility where they are parking cars, even for your own safety. Let's say there's a fire outbreak. Where you have the cars, there should be a form of fire extinguisher because cars have petrols. If there are no petrols in cars, PMS, those cars will not get to your facility. And it means that there's possibility that when there's a fire and it escalates, the petrol that are there will even make it faster and it can get to your building and also destroy your own property too. And it can even tarnish your own image too. So cars are part as owner's risk, but you also have a risk. And you also have a price to pay when the consequences of such happens.
Okay, let's look at this scenario. A while ago on this particular show, an HSC expert came and said, when there are fire outbreaks anywhere, walk to the rallying point, don't run. Of course, that should be like, okay, self-explanatory, because in the course of running, you may, trip and fall to the ground and be trampled upon. Now, if we have emergency cases in recreational centers or facilities, what happens to the communication? How should communication be done so that people are aware of what to do, the emergency protocols to follow? Because we all seem carried away by the funfair, the glitters of the centers. How should we carry out, when I say we, I'm talking about owners of facilities of recreation, how should they go about communicating the necessary safety protocols to people that come visiting? What is the industry standard where that is concerned?
Now, when you have, we can put them under the guide of visitors. When you have your guests, it is your duty to induct them. There should be a safety moment. These are the things that are lacking when it comes to when organizations, industries don't put safety in place, when they do not care about safety, because it's nothing difficult. When you have people that are coming to your facility for relaxation, there should be few moments to talk about the most important thing: where the toilet is, where the kitchen, where the toilet is, where the restroom is. The muster point: if there's an emergency, what should they do? Where should they pass through? It should be a basic part of what is required for them to stay in your facility. Not just collect money, then just let them to go inside. And also, we should also design your facility in such a way that it is very easy for mass movement, because we are talking about recreational activities. You want as much as possible, you want people as much as possible to come to your facility. So at the design, as I mentioned at the design stage, your design should be safety friendly, in the sense that if there's an emergency at the worst case scenario, there should be easy channel and easy movement of people to their muster point. And at least they must know where the muster point is, which most times is always close to the exit. That is where the door is, close to the exit. And don't run, because when you run, you risk the possibility of falling, and there might be stampede, exactly when you have people of that population in your facility. So these are the things that should be put in place when it comes to issue of emergency. It is true, you don't run, but at the same time, the organization needs to ensure that they communicate this to, that is the recreational center, needs to ensure that they communicate this via induction. They should induct them. It takes few minutes to induct them on what to do when there's a possible safety issue or emergency situation.
How does the festive season or festive seasons impact the need for safety and even the challenges with ensuring safety?
Again, please. Can you come again, please? I didn't get that.
Okay. I'm talking about the festive season, which we're gradually moving into. So how does seasons like this impact the need for safety and the challenges that come with ensuring safety in recreational facilities?
Obviously, there is, apart from the use of the word season that you use, we have seasons for everything. There is a season where a particular business will not have as much as they expect based on their average level of engagement. And there's a season where it is their season. So this season that we are going into is their season. So definitely as they go into the season, like we were talking about risk assessment, as they go into their season, it is their responsibility to ensure definitely that they carry out a review of their risk assessment to be sure that everything is up to date with regards to safety. So because this is the time when they have higher population, higher number of people coming, higher number of visitors in their facilities, they need to carry out a risk assessment because it will definitely have a high impact on their safety. So they need to expand their safety, their safety progress. They need to expand their safety controls and ensure that there is continuous engagement of safety professionals to them to address possible safety issues that could happen. Because safety is not, yes, safety is about protecting people, protecting properties, reducing costs and the likes. Also, safety also helps you to protect your reputation and to put you in that climb where people see that this organization cares about people. It's not only after the money. So it helps in your business also. It helps to grow your business when you put this in place. And people will even draw closer to your organization, to your facility, because of the fact that they hear, and that is about quality too, because when you have quality service, people will tell the other person. That is the best form of marketing you can ever have. The best form of marketing that any company can ever have is a customer that is satisfied, because it will tell the next customer, and that customer will tell the next customer, and your business continue to grow. So, and what they look out for when it comes to regional activity is also their safety. So the impact that it can have when you have safety in place is a positive impact. Because when you do not have safety in place, people are scared of coming into your facility. And at the end of the day, you have the chance of losing revenue, and even more, if possible, closing down your business, because people don't want to go to where they don't feel safe. According to Maslow hierarchy of needs, basic need, safety, physiological safety comes next after the basic need, water, clothing, and shelter. The what comes next is the physiological safety, which is the normal people being in a place where they feel safe. So if you want to ensure that your business continues to grow, definitely you should engage and embrace safety professionals in your business.
All right. Let me just ask you a question about evacuation protocols when accidents happen around recreational centers. Typically, the way I see it, HSC professionals should be the last to leave. They must ensure that, okay, those who have come visiting leave first. But if you've ever seen an accident scene at centers like that, it will not be too unusual for you to see even HSC practitioners themselves leaving first. They should be the last one leaving. What does this speak to the quality of hands that are employed to manage safety around places like that? Or what should be the standard evacuation protocol be in the industry where we have accidents at centers like that?
Now, firstly, safety should be the first to be there, and safety should be the last. That is our responsibility. But not just being there, like go ahead. You are there to ensure the safety of people in the facility. What most companies do these days is that because maybe there's a regulation, because they just want to have a safety officer, because they said we should have a safety officer. Because of that, they just bring somebody from nowhere who is not trained, who is not competent, who doesn't understand his job, to just come there and say, okay, I'm a safety officer for this for this organization. But the person is not trained on what is required. And sometimes the company themselves do not engage enough safety officers. For example, when you have a facility, a company, for example, that have more than 25 employees, some say 40. If you have, for every 25 employee or 40 employees, you should have one safety officer. But then that if you're having like 100, 120 employees, you should have like 3 safety officers. But you see companies that they have up to 200 employees and they be having one safety officer. This is not in commensuration to the number that should be available, because when it comes to safety is a very tedious engagement. Another thing is that they do not give value to the health and safety profession. They only see us they only know us when there's an accident. But when things are going well, they believe that it is happening naturally. Yes, we believe that, God protect us. We are not saying that God is not protecting us. Faith and work works together. Faith without work is lame, the way they used to say it. So everything works together. You can't stay in the front of a car and expect that God will save you and it won't hit you. My brother, it's going to hit you seriously, and you might even die or become suffer permanent disability. So what we are saying is that God has given us the ability to be able to think critically. And some people are in that profession to be able to, who has been trained completely, who has received the required training for them to be able to address health and safety issues to prevent accident from happening. So when you see professionals who leaves a facility first without having an active professional to replace them, because there's what we call shift. In case of organization that runs 24 hours, there's always a shift process for safety professionals to always be there. Is not in a standard practice, it is not possible, or it's not a good practice where a safety professional will leave a facility before the end of before the end of that particular activity. For example, let's say a movie center, the safety department should be there. The first aider should be there because there might be first aid issue. So leaving earlier is a display of lack of competence. It means that the person needs to undergo more trainings as time passes by, so that he will be abreast of what is required of him as a professional whenever he is in the facility. Either there's an accident or there's no accident. As far as the facility is still having their programs or their event in place, a safety professional must be there. But the question now do companies even engage safety professionals in the first place? How many beach have you gone to and you see that they have a safety personnel? How many movie theaters have you gone to and you see that they have a safety personnel? How many clubs? Let's even look at clubs. How many clubs have you gone to? Because that's also an example. How many tourist centers have you gone to? We have Ajaokuta, all their names. There are so many regional centers anyway, where people go to and relax. Museums, how many of them have safety professionals in place? So that is the first question. Most times they don't, because the enforcement is not there enough to ensure that they do that at all costs.
All right, finally, before we let you go, are there times of the day that increases the risk associated with the use of certain facilities?
What kind of facilities? You mean recreational activities, right? Recreational centers.
Yes. For instance, the pool, or maybe it's an amusement park that has certain facilities. Are there times of the day that could increase the risk associated with the use of the pool or other facilities within an amusement park or the recreational centers?
Yeah, generally speaking, when it comes to safety, either amusement park, generally even in the workplace, the night, so when it gets to the dark times of the day, that is towards the night, it has higher risk. And that is because the night there's poor illumination at night, and there's always poor response to emergencies. So which puts the night hour as the day that has higher risk of accident. So at that point in time, there should be extra safety measures if any event might be taking place in the night.
Thank you very much, Waliu Adegoke, HSC consultant, CODA Safety Consult, for talking with us extensively on safety and regulations in the recreational business, and expanded it, not just talking about safety within recreational business, but safety anywhere at all. Could be in another kind of business, but every business, every organization needs to ensure that they comply with standard safety rules. Thank you very much for being with us on the show this morning. All right, we'll go on a quick break and then look at another aspect of the recreation business. Stay tuned.
right, welcome back to Early Exchange on Souk News. We took a look at the regulations and the other safety protocols that have to do with recreation centers. But then let's look at the broader challenges and the prospects in that particular sector itself. We have with us Sam Olowuche, who is the Director of Policy Research and Development for Femi Walsh Limited, owners of Souk News and Walsh Radio. Good morning, Sam, for joining us here.
Ayo, my pleasure to be here. I'm blessing.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I know you are widely traveled, and yes, you've seen quite a lot of places in your experience in life so far, and you have actually, been to a lot of recreation centers. And beyond being a consumer of recreation services, I know you do have extensive knowledge about, some of the issues we're talking about here, the challenges of the recreation business. Why is it? Because there are countries in the world where, a sizable chunk of their GDP comes from, let's call it tourism, because recreation will be part of that, really. But then we don't seem to have, to be making so much use of that, taking that advantage here in our country. Talking about the possibilities, the potentials of these recreation centers as revenue drivers for the country. Let's have an opener, a general opener. What is the general, maybe the number one challenge that we have in scaling up the revenue drive from recreation centers in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you very much indeed. First, let's see it from a policy perspective. The Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation has a mandate to develop that sector. Therefore, we must make a distinction between international tourism, domestic tourism, medical tourism, education tourism, and all that. And there's a vision that was crafted some years back called Vision 2025. That's from the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation. This agenda was supposed to pull up investment in the domestic tourism industry. So the prospects are there, the challenges are there, but as we progress, we're able to speak to the specific issues within that industry.
All right, let's look at the competition in the industry of recreational business. We will have different kinds of recreational business springing up these days, and it's even expanding to different areas. Before now, people used to know recreational business as maybe you go to an amusement park or you go to maybe the cinema, but we now have different kinds. We have the gym, which is one way that people even recreate, trying to keep fit and all of that. Like I said, other business springing up. So in keeping with the dynamics that's keep happening with the recreation business, what are some of the challenges?
All right, I think within the tourism industry, I like to use a generic word. Recreation is part of those businesses. One of the major challenges is security, service delivery, the service culture, particularly from those who operate in those businesses, need to be upscaled in order to be able to sustain that sector. Number two, the government need to have a deliberate policy that promotes tourism beyond what the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation is doing. Then investors in those sectors too must up their game in terms of the service delivery they offer. Therefore, service, in my view, is a major driver and enabler for recreation or tourism business. Therefore, a massive investment must be made in terms of the service so that when potential tourists or those who use those centers go to those places, they are able to get value for their money and their time.
Okay, now, let's look at the seasonality of the service being rendered. We do know that when we have festive seasons, there is, an influx of people into recreation centers. But then when the festivities are over, there seems to be a lull in the market, so to speak. And this doesn't, support the smooth running of business, because if your income or if your revenue is seasonal, then you really can't plan long term. What can, owners of these facilities, do, or maybe at the policy level, what can we do to ensure that we have a constant, because Dubai has a constant flow of tourists. every year. What are they doing right that maybe other parts of the world, maybe in Africa in particular, can take a look at to ensure that we take care of this seasonality of festivities, whether there are festivals or not? People who run these centers can still make meaningful revenue. What should we do that we're not doing it?
All right, thank you very much. I think earlier in this conversation, I talked about security, but what is uppermost in that sector is the way we offer service. Therefore, the government must have a deliberate policy that drives service delivery in that sector. Number two, even though some of those businesses within the tourist sector are seasonal, but there's always something in season that address investment that will sustain people coming to take advantage of those. So, for example, just last month, you have the Osogbo Festival that ran over for 2 weeks, and you have a lot of millions of people coming from the Caribbean. There are other festivals towards the end of the year. You just have what they call the Isheshe Festival. I hope I pronounced that very Isheshe Festival. Those ones equally attracted a lot of followers in some of the states in the southwest. So the point is that once the security reforms are offbeat, a lot of investment, service delivery is done, then we'll be able to sustain the prospect. But you must understand that there's a distinction between international tourism and domestic tourism. So at the domestic front, we must improve on hotel services and all the ancillary services that support that industry. Then for us to get international tourists, we need to improve on those various tourist destinations that are very attractive. You have the Kogisi, you have other festivals around the country that can sustain that sector.
What are some of the new trends that have influenced the recreational activities that businesses offer?
All right, if you want to talk about cinema, that's part of it. You talked about gym earlier, so people are taking those kind of relaxation mode to be able to create value and revitalize themselves to keep up with what you call work-life balance. So those are some of the new trends, and those trends are in high demand. People subscribe to those gyms for recreation purposes. So we pray and hope that more investment will come into that sector to be able to drive domestic tourism.
Okay, let's look at the need for balance between maximizing enjoyment for visitors to a tourist center or a recreation facilities and ensuring that we have sustainable, practices there. Oftentimes, when people visit a particular center, they leave, litters everywhere. How should, tourist center owners, conduct themselves in such a way that while people are enjoying, because that's what they came to pay for, they still, inculcate sustainable habits? How do we set this, maybe at the policy level or maybe at the organizational level, so that you are going there to enjoy without destroying the environment for us?
Essentially, that speaks to customer service that I mentioned earlier. So a component of customer service is a customer service standard. So for the operators in the industry, they need to up the game in terms of their customer service standard to keep those places clean, hygienic, so that people can always come back to those environments. So it has to do with the service level by the operator. So on the part of government, the service standard, particularly from the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation, they need to improve on the service standard for those who operate within the domestic tourism sector, so that people can visit those places and be able to sustain those places over a period of time.
Okay, so in what way can rising cost of equipment, the facility, maintenance of the facility itself, staff training impact the profitability of a recreational business? And is there a way to go about that?
Once you invest in that sector, it's a tourist sector. So one of the major drivers for that sector are the equipment and the service that we spoke to earlier. So those who have investment in those areas must find a way to sustain the service delivery so that they can have return on their investment, to sustain the profitability which they intend to have in those businesses. So service, service is critical to the sustainability of that sector.
Okay, you have spoken extensively about service delivery, which is key to the growth of that particular sector. Yes, you mentioned customer service or customer experience, but we do know that there are changing consumer preferences these days. When people went to the parks in the past, there were things they probably wanted to see, but today it is being said that the tastes and the preferences have changed. Could you just speak to some of these changes that people now expect to see when they go to recreation centers? Maybe that was not there before.
No, I think that, again, to a very large extent, is subjective. It depends on the kind of recreation center that
okay, let me give you an instance now. There is the place of experiential recreation. Now, people want to experience things. Before now, people just went there for sightseeing. Now there is the infusion of technology now that you can how things in real times when you wear this your artificial goggle and so on and so forth. So I'm speaking to that. How have changes in consumer expectations impacted the recreation business for
okay. Specifically, what you're talking about impact of technology on that sector. So what it is, because of the changing dynamics in that sector, investors must equally react to consumer preferences, and you just talk about customer experience. So what kind of experiential value do people get when they come to your recreation center? So you must constantly invest, driven by technology and consumer preferences, to be able to stay on top of the curve or above, or to meet customer expectation and equally exceed those expectations, so that at the end of the day, you can get value and a better return on your investment. So technology is a major driver in terms of customer experience.
All right, in terms of the demand for businesses that offer recreational activities, what actually influenced demand? Is it the culture, which is the way of life of the people, or the economic situation in that environment?
I think both. In this part of the world, in terms of the way we patronize the recreation center is a bit lower. So that's part of culture. But again, people feel that for you to spend money to go and relax, in some cases, is a waste of time. So, but I think we need more education in that area, that you need to energize yourself from time to time, what the Japanese call the Kaizen effect, to be able to regenerate, so that you are able to add value to whatever you are doing. So it's important that we educate people that you need to recreate from time to time. So the cultural ambition that stop those kind of things must be addressed. Then the cost must equally be looked at. But there must be a balance between the two elements that we just talked about.
Okay. Do you think we are doing enough to attract investment into the recreation subsector? Let me call it that way. Of course, when we had Wale Adegoke, who spoke about some centers, and you mentioned the Kogosi, Wall Spring, and so on and so forth, which used to be specific centers for recreation, the Obudukatu Ranch, and so on and so forth. At the national level, are we making enough efforts now to attract more investors to come and develop those recreation centers within the tourism sector as a whole? Or if we're not, what should we be doing to ensure that we don't lose the values that those places have to offer us as a country?
I think for those the sector that had international appeal, the Kogisi that I mentioned earlier is other new international management, and a lot of it has been rebranded, and a lot of international visitors are coming. So what is the key for me is, to what extent can we sustain a customer service culture that enhance attraction to those places? So there's investment, but for local investors, they must up their game, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of service delivery. So once the services are okay, people will be attracted to those centers. So the government, on their part, must equally see how the ease of doing business in those sectors are encouraged, so that you have more international investors and local investors coming to that sector, so that we can drive the revenue stream that will improve on our GDP in the long run.
There are diverse markets within the recreation industry. Now, are there certain aspects of that market that are yet to be explored in Nigeria?
I think maybe if you talk about the volume of investment, yes, but there's hardly any sector within that tourist practice in Nigeria that has not been invested into. But what I can speak to is that we need to provide adequate service delivery so that more people will be interested to invest in that industry. So you can drive in traffic, international traffic, then domestic traffic to sustain the businesses in those sectors. But hardly any sector that has not been invested into in that area. Maybe the volume and the patronage, that may be something that we can speak to at another time.
Okay, now, improvements take place when there are enough constructive feedbacks to the organizers or the owners of these recreation centers. In your experience so far, having been to several parts of the world, now localize it to Nigeria now as a case study, do you think there are enough feedback gates for visitors to all these centers to lodge complaints that would eventually lead to operational rejigging that you will be speaking to? Do you have enough feedback gates, or it's just we take what comes to us?
I think some of those businesses have feedback mechanism that should address customer complaint. But the challenge here is that we don't really have a service culture as a people. So what we need to improve on is to find a way to drive a service culture. That's what we call service leadership culture that deals with service standard, customer experiences, or to be able to train the operators and those who are service provider within the sector. We may not be able to get the desired result in terms of customer feedback mechanism. Therefore, we need to improve on the way we respond to customer complaint. And as they say in customer service, the customer that complains is your best customer. The quiet customer that does not complain is most dangerous. Therefore, those complaints must be treated in a way that it adds value to the customer. And those service providers must equally reach out to those feedbacks by responding in terms of reaching the various customers through various touch points.
We're in the digital age, so what is the role of technology in ensuring quality service delivery? Okay,
technology we aid in terms of you can purchase your tickets online. You can have technology as effect in some of those recreation centers. So technology is an enabler, is a facilitator for that industry. So technology will continue to play a major role in driving that business. So for people to stay in that business, they need to invest in technology, they need to invest in service delivery to sustain their play in that industry.
All right, we've spoken so well about service delivery. If we still have a lot of people who are thinking of setting up businesses in that particular sector, the recreation subsector, as I would like to call it. What would be beyond service delivery? If you were in a position to advise would-be investors, what would you ask them to take care of? You mentioned security earlier, you mentioned service delivery. What other things do you think they should take care of? Or do you think once these two are taken care of, then they are good to go?
All right, I think the investment must be on human capital, because human capital is the driver of service and all the deliverable that you expect to make your customer to be happy. Therefore, investment in the right personnel with a service orientation and a service culture will help to drive that business.
All right, now let's look at another aspect, which is the engagement with a local engagement, which some recreational businesses have been able to do through events to further boost loyalty to the business. Because you find that a business starts up within maybe the first year or some months, and it's a boom because a lot of other people who go to patronize other recreational activities are drawn there. But over time, they are able to retain these people. So what kind of community engagement should those in recreational industry engage in to encourage loyalty?
All right, the ambience is number one. The service delivery, we cannot avoid talking about service delivery because it's the heart of that industry. So what can make those business stay on a sustainable manner is the kind of service you have, the kind of personnel that you recruit into that sector, and the training and retraining of the personnel will help them to stay in business. So local engagement in terms of investment in human capital, service delivery is important. Investment even in the local community where you train what you call tourist guide and those who provide ancillary service will help in that direction.
Okay, one of those, maybe not services, one of those things that, investors in this subsector can do to promote local participation is giving back to the society, ensuring that they contribute positively to the growth of that particular locale where they are operating from. But experiences in the past show that they seem to operate in silos. It's always a gated facility in the first place for security reasons and what have you. Then the people in the neighborhood might not be able to really, access that place. Shouldn't there be some kind of consideration for the locales that you have there because you are thriving in their environment?
I think the concept of corporate social responsibility, CSR, has always been a part of the business model. Sometimes even when you don't have a direct CSR project within the community, some of the locals are employed in those businesses, and I can see that as a form of corporate social responsibility. Therefore, beyond maintaining a clean environment, depending on the business model of those service providers, then social responsibility can come in form of giving employment to the people in that environment, but it can go beyond that by providing other social amenities, water, maybe building a community service center for the immediate community will help to energize those businesses where they play.
Thank you very much, Sam Oroji, who is Director, Research Policy and Development, Femi Wash Limited, owners of Sook News and Wash Radio, for talking to us today about the challenges and prospects of the recreation business. So if you are an owner of any recreational business, you've gotten some tips today on how to navigate the challenges. And if you are looking forward to investing in recreation business, you've seen the prospect of the business, you now know what to do. Thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. Bless you.
We're going to break, and another part of recreation business will be our focus.
There's been a lot of fundraise, especially in the tech environment in Nigeria, and there's every need to be cautious, not to think that the fundraise itself is the end point. It's a means to an end. If the job is 100%, the fundraise is just 20. There's still 80% to go. So what you certainly do not do is to raise funds and shortly thereafter go onto social media and brag about the brand new car you bought or the apartment you've moved into in Banana Island. It doesn't make for good optics. And unfortunately, when you really need the benefit of doubt, you might not get it from your investors. You don't raise money and then ask, so what should I do with the money? At that time, it's too late. You've lost the plot. When you raise money, you would have raised it based on the back of an agreement with your investor, clearly outlining how the money will be spent and how the returns will come. It's imperative to stick to that plan. And if anything changes in the environment or in the business and you have to pivot or there's going to be a significant change, it's imperative to then get the buy-in of the investor. The investors are not philanthropists. This is what we need to understand. They are not giving grants. The investors are astute businessmen who are not necessarily content with the normal rate of returns of placing money in the bank or buying bonds. And that's why they take the risk of putting their funds in a risky venture, such as a startup, which has no track record. What we have to bear in mind is that when the investor gives you any amount of money to invest in the business, come rain or shine, he will typically ask you for 3 times of that in 5 years. So let's do the math. Let's say that I took $1 million as a raise from an investor in, say, 2015, when the dollar was 200 naira per dollar. 5 years on, in 2020, I'll be expected to return to that investor $3 million. $3 million in 2020 at 440 per dollar is about 1.32 billion naira. Now, if you keep the money for longer, then it's even getting more tricky because the exchange rate is falling and you have to do more to pay back. Let's put that figure aside. Bear it in mind, 1.32 billion. If I had approached the bank in 2015 to borrow the same amount of $1 million, at that time it was 200 million naira. So I borrowed 200 million naira. Interest rate is 20%. In 5 years, that's another 200 naira. So what I'll return to the bank will be 200 naira interest plus 200 million naira that I borrowed. I'll be returning 400 million naira. And then compare this in the same period with someone who raised money and has to return 1.32 billion naira. This gives you a sense when I say that raising the money is just the tip of the iceberg. If your business has not reached an inflection point, if your business has not proved this concept, then venture capital money may not necessarily be for you unless there is a match, which means you are earning in the currency that you borrowed in. So you borrowed in dollars and then you are earning in dollars. Or you have what we call a forward contract with a bank to hedge against exchange loss, if it is available. But if not, then you take VC money when you have captured the cost of building the business such that any additional customer is a contribution margin. In that case, it makes sense to scale very quickly because every customer is adding to the bottom line. That is when it makes sense to take the VC money because then they are sharing in the profit and they are helping you to grow the business quickly to deliver that profit. Bear in mind, raising money is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. Pursue that end.
Thank you very much, Austin Okiri, for those wonderful tips on business. Now let's look at marketing and branding a recreation business. How do you make your recreation business appealing to people? How do you make it welcoming to them? What are the things to do in trying to market your recreation business, particularly if it's a new recreational business coming into a circle where you already have existing recreational business that are even thriving? So how do you win over new customers, and how do you keep them? How do you succeed over time? What are those things you should consider in branding your business? Now, let's look at your target audience identification as the first step. Now, but before you even look at your target audience identification, you even need to know what sector you want to go into. But your target audience will also help you identify that. I'm not the one to talk all about it, because we have Precious Alexia Bassi, who is the founder of Papa Leisure. She'll be joining us very soon via Zoom to talk about this. So which area can you go into depending on your budget? Now, which audience would you be serving in that particular kind of business? These are some of the things we'll be looking at today. All right, now for you, Ayo,
yes,
when
yes.
you want to patronize a recreation business, now what are the things that comes to mind for you? What exactly are the things you consider that makes you, that helps you make a decision among different businesses, and then you pick this one and say, this is the one I'm going to patronize?
Essentially, I would think first and foremost of the touch points that I've had in the past with the particular, recreation facility before I patronize them. The buying decision is not a one-day decision. There's something called the customer journey, the customer experience. That company must have taken me on the customer journey before, even before I get to, patronize their service or engage their service, as the case may be. So, what has been my experience at every brand touch point? That is where branding is critical here. Now, we often confuse branding with marketing, or we confuse it for marketing. They are not the same. So for me, I would ask myself, what has been the quality of my pre-sales experience or pre-purchase experience? If I feel I was treated right by the encounters I've had with them, then it's easy for me to, buy. All right, so we have with us via Zoom Precious Alexia Bassi, who is the founder of Purple Leisure. Good morning, Precious. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good morning.
All right, thank you for joining us. We are taking a look at the place of marketing and branding in recreation business. These two terms are often used interchangeably. Let's start with that background. Could you please, differentiate between branding and marketing with respect to the business of recreation? Let's start there.
Sure. Okay, first of all, branding is kind of like a whole different ball game from marketing, right? Branding is the visual and mental aspect of your business. That's when people see things that resonate with your business. What's the first thing they think about? Do they think about you? How do you market the business? How do you put the business out there, the face basically of the business, what the out looks like, what the in looks like, and all of that. And then marketing is basically channels through which you can, advertise this business, through which people can meet you. Now, if there's no solid branding, all your marketing is just basically going to go to waste. So branding is as much important as marketing is, although very different, but they work hand in hand and they're both very important.
Okay, for a new business that is just starting, what is the step, or what are the steps to branding that new business?
First of all, I would say that you should think about the visual aspects, right? What colors do you want your business to represent? The logos, the idea that you want your target audience to perceive, or your potential clients. What do you want them to think when you see the business, right? You don't want to go about starting a new business using, let's say, color blue as the first maybe flyer or logo design color, and then the next 2 weeks you're using green and black, right? There should be a steady color that you choose, right? The visual aspect is very, very much important. Do you understand? So that even when your something about the business or the company pops up somewhere, somebody can identify that, oh, this is this particular recreational company, you know.
All right. Our elementary knowledge of marketing talks about the 4 P's of marketing: the products, the place, the pricing, and the promotion. Of course, it starts from the product. Now, let us zone in on the business of recreation. What are they selling? I ask this question because when you look at the fast food business, for example, it is easy to say, okay, they are into the business of fast food. No, that is not the business for some people. It is the real estate part of it that is yielding so much revenue for them. So when you want to go into the business of recreation, what are you selling essentially? What is the product like?
Specifically for the the recreation industry, I'll say you're selling experience, right? Service. Experience is very important because in most cases for recreation company, you don't have a hand-in product, right? What it is that you can sell to the client or the audience or your target market demographic is an experience, right? So you should tailor your business structure, your business purposes, the solutions you're providing along the line of creating the best experience that a client or a customer can get when they engage in business with you.
So let's look at the steps to marketing that business, assuming that successful branding of the business has been done. Because I asked earlier about branding a new business. So you've branded in a way that would gain the appeal of the customer. So how do you then begin to market to them? What are the steps to this? Where do you start from?
So there are different ways to marketing. These days, there is more focus on the online or digital aspect of marketing, but there is also the old school way, like I like to call it. There is promotional campaigns that you can do, like flyers, there are banners, there are posters that you can put up, there are brochures that you can also put up. There's also cold email marketing, warm email marketing, um, um, newsletters. Yes, there's also newsletters. Yes, basically, if you're trying to focus on digital marketing, online marketing, there are platforms like Facebook, there's Instagram, there is um, Telegram, Snapchat, Instagram ads, basically strategic marketing, you know, to understand what your, first of all, you have to even understand what your target audience is, and then whatever promotion or digital marketing or Instagram ad or flyer that you are printing or creating has to align with what, you know, the intending clients or consumers can identify with, you know, something that will resonate with them. So I think the first step is to identifying the target audience. Identify what your intended target audience is going to be. Are they going to be much aged people? Are they going to be expatriates? Are they going to be residents, you know, living in a particular area? So once you identify that, then you can figure out the best marketing channel that works for you. Do you want to reach out to them via cold email marketing? Do you want to do flyers first? Do you want to do digital marketing first? Do you want to just focus on billboard adverts, Instagram adverts, Facebook ads, Telegram, you know, DM marketing? There's also that, the Instagram DM marketing, where you go into the DMs and introduce what you do and what your business is, and, you know, how you can positively impact the person that you're marketing to. So I think once you identify the target audience, then you can choose which works best and then implement. Yeah.
Okay, in all of this, the budget plays a critical role. The story is told of a hypothetical business that was set up and was not performing. Then a consultant was brought in to identify what the problem could be. And he just asked a simple question: let me have your budget outlook for this business. Then he realized that a particular percentage was allocated to marketing, which was lower than expected. So I then asked the question: what should be the proportion of the budget that is allocated to marketing? Because you have businesses that have spent so much on equipment, on gadgets, on staff recruitment, and they're not spending enough on marketing. If you want to go into this business of recreation specifically, what should be the percentage of your budget that goes into marketing on a monthly basis or on an annual basis? Let's have it that way.
So as a typical business owner and entrepreneur, I would not allocate, I would not, say that, 20% or 30% of so and so amount. I would only say a portion, or of the, for example, you want to take out from funds that are already in the business. Let's say you start the business is thriving 1 year, 2 years into the business, there is more supply than there is demand, right? So you want to try to balance that out to create for the demand to meet the supply that you have, or even surpass it, right? So you then look into the company funds, the funds, right, available, right? And then try to channel out a portion of the fund that should go into marketing. I would say that for the recreational business, yes, a chunk of money should go into equipment and all of that, and maintenance and all of that. But another aspect that should also take up a chunk of money is the marketing aspect. So depending on the funds available, it's not usually advisable for the recreational business or a business owner in the recreation industry to outsource usually, or take loans for marketing. So I don't advise that you dip outside. So I would just advise that you look into the funds you have and segment a particular portion for marketing, usually around 10 to 15% of the current funding that you have for everything, right? And then you allocate this to funding, this to marketing, this to equipment, this to maintenance, this to staff salaries and all of that. So usually between 10 to 15%.
All right.
So you don't bite more than you can chew, and you don't, underserve your audience.
All right. In executing promotional campaigns, are there strategic ways to go about this? Maybe to have some kind of promotional activity that lets the customer actually have a taste of the experience or service that you're offering, beyond just doing ad campaigns on social media.
I'm sorry, come again.
All right. Now, when we talked about promotional campaigns, you mentioned that there are certain ways to go about this. You can engage in advertisements on social media and other mediums. Now, these all fall under promotional campaigns. Now, are there strategic ways to go about this, that in promoting the business, you give the customer the opportunity to have an actual taste of the experience or the service that you're offering, beyond just seeing your ads?
Okay, well, when you say strategic campaigns are not promotional campaigns, I take it you are taking out the social media kind of campaign,
okay,
right?
Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about.
Printing.
For instance, events. People actually having an experience of what you're offering.
Okay. Well, the recreation industry is really large, so I would just I'd like to give an example, right? Focus on the water sports aspect of the recreation industry. So in situations like that, where you actually need clients to you want to leave a great taste in the client's mouth. You want to leave a good taste in the client's mouth before they even think of, it's like creating a sales funnel, right? Where clients can actually come watch or see other, for example, a beach, right? And there are water sports activities on the beach. So you have people on the beach present that are not actually engaging in the water sports, but they can see how fun and how great of an experience people that are engaging on the water sports are having at the moment, right? So basically, that gives them an idea of the kind of experience that they have if they're going to participate in water sports with you or with whatever company it is that is hosting that, right? So if you then create a sales funnel or sales funnel around that where there's already the interest, right? So you create, for example, now the strategic aspect called warm email marketing, sorry, newsletters, right? After they come onto the beach, maybe there's like a platform where they can leave contacts and all of that. For example, you sign up on an online platform, you can leave your emails, contacts where clients can actually follow up with you, send you newsletters, and just keep warming you up till you actually get to the point where you become a client of that business. So I think if there's a channel, like a whole channel, yes, created for things like that, then this can work, right? Like the beach and the water sports example.
Okay, so let's look at the place of collaborative marketing by people or brands of maybe not the same service offering, but maybe similar service offering. How much of leverage can we do in that space by collaborating with others that can co-market with us because we are along the same line of business?
I can't overemphasize the importance of collaboration and partnership in industries, in businesses, especially for this particular industry. It's very important that you find services that go hand in hand with what you're focusing on. For the recreational industry, there are different aspects of the recreational industry that a particular company can be vested in. So it's important that you find somebody that offers a service that goes hand in hand with what this particular business offers, so you can create the most maximum experience that you can give a client. For example, a hotel and a food vendor, or service apartment providers and food vendors, or service apartment providers and car rental companies. That's just an example of businesses that can work hand in hand to create the best experiences.
So how do you use your marketing skill or branding even to differentiate yourself from other businesses that are in the same recreation industry with you? How do you differentiate
Like
your
I
business?
said, when you asked about branding, the visual aspect, first of all, the clients need to understand or have an idea or know when they see a particular thing about a business, maybe a flyer posted up or an email or a business name, that okay, this belongs to this particular business. So when you can create a great visual impression for the clients, there's now the aspect of
Okay, we'll take a very short break now and we'll return to that conversation with Alexia. Don't go away. Thank you. right, thank you for staying tuned. Before we went on the break, we were speaking with Precious Alexia Bassi, who was speaking to us about the place of marketing and branding, the business of recreation. And she was on a particular point where she was responding to what Blessing asked her about how to stand out and, be different from the pack. I do know that from Seth Godin's book that he wrote about, about branding, he spoke about the concept of the purple cow. That and that speaks to your question of of standing out. We have all seen white cows, we've seen brown cows here and there, but what happens when you're just driving by the roadside and you see a purple cow? By default, you'll park if you can, anyway, if it is safe to park. If you don't park, you will most likely, take a second look. Oh, this cow is purple, because that's not a normal thing to do. You don't get to see a purple cow anywhere in the world. Now, that speaks to the identity, the unique identity that you were speaking about. This, for me, shouldn't really be a matter of color, because I asked a question. If branding is all about the look and the feel and the texture, what happens when a blind person or a visually impaired person visits your business? How does he still experience your brand? Meaning, branding should go beyond what we see, what we thought, what we feel.
Yes.
That's just my point there.
Even to what we hear, there are sounds that when you hear, oh, maybe it's an advertisement. Once you hear that sound, or even things that are sounds that are associated with some productions of content around that particular business, you just know, for instance, that has to do with this particular business. Now, when it comes to telecom, the telecom sector's businesses have a way of doing this. When you hear certain tones, you just know, oh, that is talking about this particular telecom operator. So those are some of the things that businesses can differentiate themselves, even when you have a lot of businesses within that particular industry. And there's also you using some catchphrases that resonate very well with your target audience, and over time they've come to know you. So once they think of that, they want to align it with your business and what you offer. All right, we have Precious Alexia Bassi back with us. She's the founder of Purple Leisure, and she'll be talking to us more on differentiating your business. Hello, Precious.
Hi, thank you for having me again. Sorry about the connection issue.
Yes, we understand. Welcome back. So before you went on a break, or we went on a break while that glitch happened, you were talking about differentiating your recreation business through branding. So can you continue?
Oh yes. So I was talking about the visual aspect of branding, of having a particular visual idea stamped to your company's name. There's also the importance of customer service. This is what I believe sets A apart from B. This is what sets different companies in the same industries apart, right? Or in the same industry rather, apart from each other. There is the taste that a certain company leaves in the mouth of a client that is much rather different from that which you leave in the mouth of another client, But I think what will place A over B is the way that the customer is received and the way that the customer is attended to. I can't really overemphasize the importance of great customer service in every business. There's also consistency that will just different or set you apart from other businesses, right? You have to be consistent in offering a particular substance, the substance that you give out to your clients, right? You can't serve an experience that leaves a taste of 10 today and tomorrow you are falling below par. There has to be that consistency, right? There has to be that consistent effort to actually serve an experience that is actually a great one, not a terrible experience, So these are just few of the things that can set you apart. There's also the empathy in there, the storytelling. all this has to mean something to the client, you know, or to the customer or the consumer, right? The emotion that is communicated through your service or the solution that you're providing, it has to communicate something beyond the physical, right? It has to resonate with a problem. It has to solve a problem of theirs. It has to create a great memory if that's what the client is looking for at the time, you know, depending on the particular segment that you're focusing on in the recreation industry.
All right, Precious. Let's move on to another leg of the conversation now, which has to do with community engagement. People do say that there are two kinds of customers when you talk about the business of recreation. There are customers that walk into the center to, you know, visit what you do there and enjoy themselves, and there are customers outside in the neighborhood who influence the customers that come into your space. Now, this boils down to community engagement. What is community engagement within the confines of, you know, recreation business?
So, first of all, I'll say that you start engaging your community positively as a business or a business owner or a body of organization from the staff. What taste are you leaving in the mouth of your staff? Whoever it is that is functioning or helping to create the great experience that the clients have or clients consistently have. What are you doing to, you know, positively impact them? Are you creating the best possible work environment? It starts with it. You can't have a 10-stop work environment and you want to influence the community positively. It's not working well. So you have to start first from the inside. How do your staffs perceive you? How do you treat the staffs basically? And then how do you treat the clients? You know, basically if you treat the staff well, it's basically word of mouth. Like they say, word of mouth is one of the strongest driving forces of business, of what brings revenue. Word of mouth plays a great role, you know. And then in the recreational industry, there is also the place of workshops, you know, community engagement, basically organizing events and workshops. Also, I would not put charity very far off because I strongly believe that one of the things that makes, you know, or breaks the idea of a business is community engagement. And one of the ways that you can do that is through charity. You know, you should first of all start by creating the best work environment, ethical practices. There shouldn't be unethical practices within, you know, your environment. And this is for your staffs. Now, for people outside, like I mentioned, workshops and event organizing. Also, depending on the area particularly that you're focusing on, you can create workshops. For example, the water sport business, you can create workshops around teaching a particular group of people who usually would not have access to it, how to swim or how to ride a jet ski or how to, you know, basically do water sports. These are small workshops that you can put from time to time, you know, to positively impact people for the business. I just cannot overemphasize. It's very important as every upstanding citizen of the community, as a business owner, as a 9 to 5er, that you actually engage in that. Now, there's actually a great communication environment. Miscommunication can leave a very terrible taste in the mouth of a client or the mouth of whoever it is you're even advertising to before they go on to become a client, right? So it's very important that you create a communication pattern that is as seamless as possible. If you're advertising to me now, I should be able to understand beyond what you're saying that you actually mean well for me. You're trying to create a solution for me. Now, what this does is, even if I'm not going to be a client, I'm going to tell you, oh, I heard about this particular motorsports company. They do this, they do that. I'm convinced beyond reasonable doubt that they can go on ahead to create a great experience for you.
So how can partnerships with local organizations enhance engagement, community engagement initiatives?
Depending on the company also, there are, like I said, workshops. There are people that specialize in For example, there are local trainers that can train a particular age of people, or your target audience, the people that you're trying to train or create events for or create workshops for. There are local trainers that you can engage in that, right? There are also local trainers that teach different things around motorsports that you can also engage. Now, what this creates is you are creating opportunities for them to also put themselves out there. It's like a two-way street, right? You guys are joining forces, so it benefits A and B. It also goes on, to leave a positive impact in the society.
Okay, now let's look at the zone of social responsibility. You mentioned the fact that we can have seminars for the community, things that they will not really have access to, ordinarily speaking. But can we just look further? What more can recreational centers do for the community that will constitute their corporate social responsibility?
There's also the issue of, alongside being an upstanding citizen, also as a business owner, emphasizes that you follow the rules and regulations of whatever city or state that you are in, right? So you can also um, practice this charitable cause by also following suit with whatever it is that the rules and regulations are. For example, the Nigerian government says, oh, as a recreational business or as a water sport company, you have to have this license or pass through this training, or all your staffs every 6 months must pass through this training. You can't want to be an upstanding citizen, or you can't want to participate or engage actively in the society without following the rules and regulations of the government. I cannot overemphasize this. It's also very important, right? In order for you to um, follow suit, right? In order for you to, stand out and not follow suit with what every other. It's easy in Nigeria for you to want to boycott areas and bypass this and bypass that rule and bypass this rule. But I would just advise that it's very important, if you want to actually engage positively in the community, you want to leave a good taste, if you want to fulfill your social responsibility, is one of the ways that you can do that. Follow suit. If there are rules or licenses to be obtained, obtain it. Don't cut corners, in doing that.
Now, in ensuring corporate social responsibility, some companies shy away from it, maybe because they don't know the benefits. So what benefit could occur to a business when they engage in corporate social responsibility, particularly a recreation business?
Well, I would just say that, first of all, for any industry at all, it's another arm that I feel like is not explored enough. This for now, for the growth of the company, it's very important for the growth of the company, because if you actually engage positively in the community, like he said, there are different kinds of customers. They're the ones that hear about you on social media or through digital platforms. But there are also the grassroots, right? The people in the grassroots locations that will never be able to have access to you without you actually actively involving yourself in the community. I mean, going down to where it all begins to identify yourself, right? There's also the stance that you create, right? It gives the business a very firm standing in the society, right? Because I mean, you never know what happens, or where you need to, or what you need to do, or where you need to go. All this creates a very firm standing for the business. I don't know if you understand what I mean, but it does create a very firm standing, and it gives and promotes businesses in ways more than one or two.
Okay, CSR is often seen as that particular corporate duty you execute once you have made a measure of profit or income. But how should startups handle the idea of CSR? Should they just forgo it for starters until they are more stable financially, or should they be a bit more creative with the kind of CSR they go into, even as startups?
Yes, I would advise that they are more.
Okay, another network glitch there. Uh, because the talk I was, I mean, the issue I raised there is of great concern. People say, okay, you only big companies should do CSR. I just started out. I've not even gotten to the point of break even, let alone the profit making point. So I can do CSR. But that is only in your own estimation. To those who are in the locale, they see you as, you know, a ready-made entrepreneur who have come. I mean, who has come there essentially because you have it all. I wouldn't know what to take is on that.
Okay, there are different ways in which CSR can be done. It's not necessarily you having an event to give back to society by maybe giving them some money, by doing workshops where you donate items to them. Environmental stewardship is one of them. Now, for those in recreation business, because of the nature of the business, sometimes the customers who come in end up littering the entire place. Now, it is not just for you to ensure the cleanup of your premises alone. What about if that is your own way of giving back to society by ensuring that all around you, the place where your business is located, you ensure cleanup of that place. It could even be an initiative where you engage the people, you bring them to know the importance of cleanliness, which you champion. And it could be a day in the week where you lead and the community follows you. So that's one way you're ensuring you give back. You're ensuring cleanliness. So it's another part of CSR. Not everything comes down to you spending huge amounts of money in doing things.
Okay. Yeah, even at some point it was discussed in some fora that, you know, attending their monthly community meeting as a company can actually speak volume. You know, get one member of your staff to be there and you listen to them because they feel that you are one of them, as you should really be, because you are playing your game in a contest in their own locale. But when you find owners of businesses take a standoffish approach to even local engagement, they're having monthly CDA meeting, you're not there, and most times they have to write to your organization to give you resolutions from their meeting which could impact on your business and its profitability. That becomes a problem because they want to see you as one of them that you should be. So that should be another way I think that, you know, business owners who play in every locale should integrate themselves with the people, and then you must respect the culture of the land because culture matters here in Africa.
Yes, and you should also promote local content. Now, in such engagements, you mentioned the engagement where they participate in the local town hall meeting. It gives you the opportunity to know the kind of people that you have. Can you include some of them in your workforce? That's you having some local content in your business. All right, Precious Bassi is back with us. And so let's continue the conversation with her. Hello, Precious.
Hello. Hi.
All right, now as we begin to wrap up, let's look at some creative ways to have CSR done without necessarily spending so much, because the financial aspect is a reason too why some companies will want to shy away from corporate social responsibility.
Yes, as a startup, like he said, you may not necessarily, your company may not necessarily have the funds to pour into workshops or events organizing and all of that. You can, like I said before, start by being an upstanding citizen. Follow the rules that are supposed to be followed. Don't cut corners. Don't bypass what shouldn't be bypassed, or what shouldn't be bypassed, right? There's also the part of volunteering. You as an individual, depending on, now I'm not going to focus on a particular industry. This spans across all industries, right? You and your staff, or you, if you're a one-man business, can actually volunteer to do well, just volunteer, to participate in issues that concern the welfare of the citizen. It could be volunteering in healthcare, it could be volunteering in education, it could be volunteering in even stewardship, right? Rendering services that you don't get paid for. You don't necessarily need money to do all this. You don't necessarily need money to participate or be a volunteer of a particular cause. Even if the business is not the one that invented the cause, you can actually volunteer to be a part of it. I know a business, a particular business in a much different industry, that every 6 months, herself and the staffs, is a business of just 5 people. Herself and four of the staffs volunteer in different parts of, charity. They volunteer in healthcare today. They go out with other people that already have a cause, to just volunteer to be a part of it. That's one of the ways that you can positively impact the society.
Okay, thank you very much, Precious, for time spent with us on the show today. For want of a better expression, permit me to say that we have had precious moments on the show with Precious. Yeah, thank you for gracing the show. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that is the size of the package today on Early Exchange. And as a matter of fact, for the entire week, thank you very much, all of you that have been there with us from Monday till today, Friday. We are in the new month, and I want to thank my production team and everybody involved in one way or the other. My name is Ayo Jimmy Godwin. Monday is yet another day for Early Exchange. Goodbye.
And for me, I want to make an appeal to owners of recreational business, particularly those where loud music is played. Please sometimes be environmentally sensitive and find a way around this thing so that people, as much as you want to make money, can also enjoy the environment in which they live in, so your business does not constitute any form of nuisance. And that's been the show. I am Blessing AJ. Thank you for watching. I ask that you stay with Sook News.